Hey, good morning. This is Chris with Suarez Home and Finance. Coffee with Chris Monday morning. So I hope you're having a good morning so far. It is 10 o'clock. We're on and giving you lots of more information. So we're talking about today how much money do I need to buy a home? So there's a lot of information, a lot of misconception about, what monies that you need up front and so on and so forth. What's non-refundable, what's refundable, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to kind of walk through. Um, and just like I always say, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a real estate agent, all of the above. This is what the normal is, all of that kind of stuff. So there's some parts in here that you will get with your real estate agent on to make sure that is it refundable? Is it not? Like in case the contract falls through, stuff like that. So let's get with it. So this morning, again, talking about how much money do I need to buy a home? So um, when you are buying a home, there is upfront cost, not an option. So a lot of the misconception, the biggest part of what I'm referring to is if you have down payment assistance, or if you're doing a VA loan with 0% down, or you're doing a USDA loan with 0% down, or you have what's called seller concession, meaning that your realtor has added into or asked the seller to pay some of your closing costs. Those are things to benefit you, but those do not omit or make you not have to come out of pocket with certain monies. You still have to come out of pocket with monies up front. So you always need to be prepared to have those monies, a certain amount of monies up front, regardless of if you have any of those type of things going on. So your initial upfront cost. So whenever you are pre-approved and you're going to find a house, you're going to have, and you put a contract in, the seller accepts your contract, you're going to have what's called an escrow deposit. It's otherwise known as a good faith deposit. So that deposit is that goes to the title company, does not go to your lender, does not go to your realtor. Your realtor will instruct you where to send it, and it is on your contract as well. So normally that is required to be at the title company between 24 to 48 hours. When you are doing financing, that money has to be what's called sourced, which we've talked about that in the past. Source meaning we have to, your finance company for your loan has to show that it came out of an account that is yours and it belongs to you, or was it a gift or whatever. So your escrow deposit can be a gift. There is criteria on that. So that's a different, animal. And again, that's where you talk to your finance person about that. But it is still required. So even if you're getting a gift, you have to have that money up front. And that is required per your contract. Again, I'm not the attorney or the real estate agent, but the contract says that you have to give that money to the title company, to the escrow company, within normally, again, 24 to 48 hours. Normally, that escrow deposit is about $1,000. When you're talking about a higher priced home, it can be anywhere between, I've seen 5,000, 10,000. So it just depends. That is something, again, that you work with your real estate agent on. But again, it is required. And so what that does is that says to the seller, my interpretation says to the seller that, hey, we want this house. This is our offer. You've accepted our offer. So here's our good faith deposit that we are going through with the financing or paying cash or whatever it is. So again, that is required, not an option. As far as if the house falls through for some other reason, the inspection didn't pass, the appraisal didn't come in, or whatever, there is normally a contingency in the contract that if within a certain amount of days something happens, then that amount is refundable. Again, that is your real estate agents. That is a conversation between your real estate agent, and they make sure to protect you on that. That's also another reason why you should really have a real estate agent if you're buying a home, so that you have those contingencies in your contract to make sure that you are covered. So that is your good faith deposit, aka escrow deposit, whichever way you want to say it, it's the same thing. So next we have, so your contract is accepted, you've got your escrow deposit, you put it into the title company. Okay, great. Your next things are your inspections. So for a loan type, so if you're doing financing, a home inspection is not normally required, but we always strongly suggest it. So between your finance person and your real estate agent, all of the above normally strongly suggest it. It just depends on how big your house is, all of that kind of stuff, or whatever. It depends on your home inspection cost. So it could be anywhere between 260, 300, all the way up to 500 plus. Again, it just totally depends on how much your inspector charges, how big the house is, all of that kind of stuff. So that is something that, again, I would say to plan on, 3 to 500 at minimum for your home inspection. And again, it depends on, also what state you're in. So if you're watching this and you're out of Florida, maybe the inspector's in a different area, the cost is different. You have a higher cost of living. So that is something that your finance person and your real estate agent can help you to determine how much that is. So that can be totally conversation up front. Again, to be prepared, how much money you need out of pocket. A pest inspection. So a pest inspection is required for certain loan types. Again, some it's not. If you're doing cash, then it's not. It's a choice. So pest inspection can be anywhere between, I've seen anywhere between 75 to almost 200. Again, totally depends on the inspection company, the location, what they're doing, all of the above. Conversation with your real estate agent and finance person. Septic inspection. So a septic inspection is required for some loan types. We strongly suggest it, even if you do not have to have one for your loan. Reason being is because we've actually had clients that have called us a couple days after closing. They did not do a septic inspection. They had an issue with what's called the drain field, which if you're familiar with a septic and you have that, then you have what's called a drain field. There was an issue with the drain field, and it was going to cost $7,000, I think, to get it fixed. So if they did a septic inspection prior to closing, then they would have known that, negotiated, something would have happened, they would have walked away from the house, whatever it was, but they did not do it before closing, so now they were stuck. So it is definitely something that we strongly recommend. Again, it is required for some loans, some loan types, some not. Sometimes the loan type dictates that if the appraiser sees something wrong with the septic, then that's whenever you need it. So it's only required if there's a notation on the appraisal, so on and so forth. That is more your finance person's responsibility to let you know on that part. But again, it's strongly recommended. Those I've seen the prices have gone up, so I would say to plan on between 2 and 300. They do just a one-page report for you. Some do a little bit more, but also a lot of times whenever they're doing this, they also pump the system out also. In other words, clean it out so that they can see if there's any roots and stuff like that. So, that's I would plan on, 2 to 300 for that. A well water test. So, a well water test is if you have a well for your water inside the home. So, some people have city water inside the home, and then they have a well outside from years ago that they use for irrigation. If it's used for irrigation, then you don't need it. Choice. If it's used for inside the house, you do need a water test for some loan types. VA and USDA, you definitely need one, and that is to make sure that there is no bacteria, for lack of better words, in the water in the well. And that is again required on some loan types. Other loan types, like conventional, or if you're paying cash, it's not required. It's a choice. Um, sometimes people go more in depth as far as what is actually needed. Those have been anywhere between $75 to 200. Just depends on what kind of water test you're doing. Again, depends on your area, so on and so forth. So those things are normally during your inspection period, and those are costs out of pocket. These are costs that are not normally refundable. So make sure that you're aware they are not refundable in most cases. You're paying for a service just like a doctor's office or whatever, so on and so forth. So again, conversation with whether it's your real estate agent and actually the inspectors, if something happens and the house fell through, seller didn't disclose something or whatever, possibly, but I doubt it. As far as refunding, again, conversation. But this is money that you need to plan on that is not refundable. Okay. Then next we go to if you're buying a manufactured, this is a whole different animal. So if you're buying a manufactured home, some people call them trailers, some people call them mobile homes. This is a manufactured home for the definition of lending is that it's not on wheels. It does not have that A-frame at the top like you can carry it away with a truck or whatever. So it is permanently attached to the property, whether, different criteria as far as that's concerned. We won't go into that. But you could not necessarily, but you could need your loan could require a engineer foundation certification. That is a foundation certification that an engineer signs off and saying that the home was put there per HUD standards. That also dictates, did the was there anything added to the home after the initial install, so on and so forth? If it was, something screwed into the home, was it done by code and by HUD standards? So that's kind of what that is. HUD labels and HUD plates. Those are HUD labels are little metal plates that are on each side of the home. And so the home needs to have that on certain loan types. And then the HUD plates it actually sounds opposite, but HUD plates is like a US map that's normally inside the home. If you are doing, normally that is that could be required for an FHA, VA, or USDA loan. USDA, that's a different animal, so just don't even put that in your head. But as far as that's concerned, so that is something that could be out of pocket for you. That is something that whenever you're doing putting in a contract on a manufactured home, see if that is there, because that could be negotiation with your realtor, conversation with your real estate agent. But if it's not there, you may be required normally to get one or the other or both. It's about 125 to 100. I think the price went up maybe about 175 each. So if you needed the HUD labels and plates, that could be, 300 and what, $350 or something. So be prepared, because that is an upfront cost. That is something that you check whenever you are putting a contract in on a manufactured. Titles to be retired. That's not an upfront cost, but it will be added to your closing cost. So manufactured homes are, whenever they're initially put in years and years ago, they had like a car title. And so there was always these issues, the seller had to find the car titles laying around somewhere, 20 plus years ago, so on and so forth. So now for several years now, um, it's called retiring the titles, meaning that manufactured home now becomes real property attached to the home, which it already is according to the property appraisers. And I'm giving you kind of general description. But now you no longer need those titles, because a process has been done to say, yes, these two pieces of the home combined go to this property. So that I've seen the prices go up on that as well. Easy 300 or so, but again, that is on your closing statement. That's not cash out of pocket normally. And that could again be, again, talk to your real estate agent. Is that something that's negotiable or not? So that's just a quick synopsis as far as if you're buying a manufactured. Insurance. So insurance may need, depending on the age of the home, may need a 4-point inspection. And that may be required for your insurance policy. These inspections are not required for your loan. The 4-point and the wind mitigation is not required for the loan, but your insurance may require it. So a 4-point inspection is normally required if the house is over 30 years old, so on and so forth. So that is a conversation for your insurance agent. But be prepared, because that is, you would normally do that at the time of your home inspection, but I'm putting it in the category of insurance because that's who requires it, who could require it. A wind mitigation gives you credit on your insurance policy. So sometimes you may need to get a wind mitigation, but it more than pays for itself. So I've seen anywhere between a couple $100 a year to over $1,000 a year that could save you on your annual insurance premium. Again, conversation for your homeowner's insurance agent. They're going to be able to tell you on that, along with your home inspector. Flood insurance. If you're in a flood zone, which Florida has a lot of that naturally. So flood insurance sometimes is required to be paid upfront prior to closing. So it will reduce. So a lot of these things all of these things are disclosed to you whenever you're doing financing, that this is the cost of buying a home. As you go through the process, your loan estimate will, your paperwork, your documents will show that you've paid those things. So it's not, sometimes it's not very clear that you see the credit on there, but everything that you pay out of pocket will reduce those closing costs if they were disclosed up front. So a lot of times with the new documents that they've been in place for several years now, but a loan estimate does not always show a credit. And so you have to look in a different place. So that is a question for your finance person. But these numbers do come off of, if they were disclosed up front, which they should be coming off of your bottom line also. So if your total estimated today, whenever you start, closing cost was 10,000, you paid all of these things. Now you may be at 9,500 or 9,000 or 8,000 or something, just depending on how much, you're paying out of pocket. So that's what these are. So your flood insurance, if you have to pay for it, if your lender, if your finance person requires that to be paid prior to closing, again, that will reduce off of your closing cost. And sometimes that is required to be paid prior to instead of at closing, like a regular homeowner's insurance policy is paid at closing. So next we have your closing. So we've kind of gone through a lot here, and then a lot quick, and then we'll circle back on a few things. So closing. So you have your required down payment. So your down payment is dictated by your loan type, which is, if you're doing VA, it's 0% down, and that's why we're talking about these, how much money do I need? So if you're doing VA, you have 0% down, but you still have closing costs. If you're doing USDA, you have 0% down, but you still have closing costs. If you have FHA, that's 3.5% down minimum. You still have closing costs. Conventional, same thing. So so if you're doing financing, you have your required down payment. And again, even if it's zero, you're still going to have your closing cost. If you have down payment assistance, this is where this would come into place. So if you have down payment assistance, we normally apply your down payment assistance towards your closing costs, for put towards your required down payment first, and then put the rest towards your closing cost, or vice versa. So what happens is that if you get $10,000 in closing costs, you cover your closing costs first to make sure you have that, and then the rest of it goes towards your down payment. If you're doing 0% down, then it may be called it, that extra money may be going towards your principal as a principal buy down. So if you're buying a house for 200,000 and you've got $1,000 extra, then now your loan amount may be for 199 or 198, whatever. If you have down payment assistance, you still have everything prior to this is out of pocket. And then you have and then at closing, you have no down payment required. And then your closing costs. So your closing costs, if you do not have down payment assistance, again, your closing costs would be reduced by anything that you paid out of pocket prior. If you did have down payment assistance, then your down payment assistance would qualify, would use that, and then whatever extra monies again would go towards your principal balance normally. If you had seller concession, your seller concession is going to cover the balance of your closing costs. Again, you still have those out of pocket expenses. There are some instances where we can get you some of that money that you paid up front back at closing. It is a case by case. It is not something that I decide, oh, okay, I'm going to get you that money back. There's different criteria on it, and it depends on how the numbers play out. So if you had seller concession of 10,000 and your closing cost ended up being 8,000, so you have 2,000 extra there. Sometimes normally that would the seller concession would be reduced, but also that's where again some of your upfront out of pocket money, your appraisal, your things like that, and I think I missed that on here. That would be reduced from that, or that if your appraisal is high enough, that's where sometimes you can get that money back. So I think I did miss that. So after your inspection, let's go back here. I can't believe that I missed that. So important. After your inspection is next is your appraisal. So if here's your inspections, here's your manufactured. So those are done. So in between here, so after your inspections is your appraisal. Your appraisal is, and I will fix this for posting and sharing and everything else, whatever. So I will add that screen in here. So for the appraisal, you do need that out of pocket, even if you're doing VA. Again, USDA does not matter. You still need that money out of pocket. That is required. And so for that money is whether, we're getting a debit card up front, you're sending a check for the VA appraisal, whatever it is, that is required and that is non-refundable. Please know that that is non-refundable, even if the contract is canceled for some other reason, or if the appraisal didn't come in or whatever, it is non-refundable. It is a service provided, just like a home inspection. So that does, that's a very important thing, because a lot of people think that it, should be refundable because the house didn't go through. It's just the same as an inspection. It is a cost of doing due diligence that is required for the loan. If you're paying cash, then that's different. So we'll kind of edit this video or whatever and podcast and put the appraisal part in here so that we've covered that. So that is so after the inspection is the appraisal, and then you go to buying a manufactured home. If that's what you're doing. So as far as your closing cost, so again, you've got your closing cost consists of, rather, a ton of different things. It is whether it's your points, if you have points, which in this time in the market and everything else with what's going in financing, you most of the time do have some points. It is your homeowner's insurance policy. It is your title insurance, all of the fees that come with title. Title is giving a policy that the house is free and clear of the previous person's crap, everything before you. You have your doc stamps. So every state is different, so you have to check with your finance person and so on and so forth, and your agent to get those costs. But your cost in Florida, you also have doc stamps, which the best way for me to describe it is like sales tax on buying a home. So you do have that. You have your escrow account if you do have an escrow, meaning that your taxes and insurance are paid from your mortgage payment. You have your homeowner's insurance that is paid for upfront, meaning that you're paying for it today for the next year. So that is not an option. So that is included in there. The only time that that is an option is possibly if you have an investment home, or again, if you're doing cash. But you still want to make sure that your house is insured. Um, you have your survey. Your survey shows you the boundary lines if you do have to have one for the loan. So you have your survey. So you have all of these different things that consist of your closing costs that are paid at closing. And so again, this is your monies out of pocket that you have to have. So if you have down payment assistance, okay, great. If you have seller concession, okay, great. But you may have a extra dollar amount that is, that you have to have also above that. So if you have 5,000 in closing cost and your concessions, your seller concession, or I'm sorry, if you had 10,000 in closing cost and your seller concession was 5, you still have the balance of that 5 to come out of pocket at closing, plus your down payment. So again, this is where all of your numbers during the process are so important to watch and pay attention to, because this is what you need to plan on having when buying a home. Educate yourself, make sure that you've got, all of your monies up front. I know that as far as we are concerned at my company, if you do not have at least $1,800 up front out of pocket, we cannot move forward. You need to save that, get a gift, whatever it is, or whatever. You have to have a minimum that, and that is for your escrow and your inspections and your appraisal. That's a minimum of 1,800, and that actually should be higher. If you don't have that, then you should not be looking at a house at all. A real estate agent may not ask you that up front. Some do, some don't. If you're pre-approved, then is your pre-approval contingent upon you saving up money for that? So educate yourself, make sure that you've got those monies. You don't want to go look at a house and say, "Oh my God, I didn't know that I needed 20,000 instead of 5." That is that happens all the time, unfortunately. So again, conversation, your real estate agent, your finance person, your insurance agent. These are conversations that you should be having during this process. They're very, very, very important. Um, so that is your closing cost and down payment. Let's see. Next is just a thank you for watching. So hopefully you're getting a lot of information from these podcasts, vodcast, all of the above. We post them all on social media and everything else so that they're out there for you. You can always share them with whoever. So this information is not just to come to me for financing. This is information so that you can share with somebody that you know is buying. Um, with, if you're a real estate agent, share it with your clients. If you, whatever the case is, if you're a title company, it's just pure education. So if you know somebody that is looking, make sure and share so that they're educated also. And so they're not blindsided. And then, because again, if you go through this process and you start the process and you have your escrow and you have your inspections, if something happens to where you don't have your down payment and closing costs at the end, you're not going to be refunded those other monies. So you're going to lose those monies. So again, educate yourself up front, make sure that you know what you need, and ask the questions. Make sure that you see, what those numbers are and everything else, and make sure that you ask the questions. So please make sure and share. Go back and watch past podcasts. We'd love to just educate you and get some more information out there. If you could like, share, love, comment, whatever it is, we love to have comments. Make sure and do, because again, those are huge for us. Love to be out there and just, help you to be more knowledgeable and more educated. So hope you have a great day. And this podcast will be available to you on our Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, all of the above. And we're working on one platform to be all in one place as well. But it is all very easily found on YouTube at the moment. So hope you have a great day. Hope your Monday doesn't be the stereotypical Monday, and hope you have a great week. So we'll talk to you next week on Coffee with Chris, Monday, 10 o'clock. All right, bye.